Hey, I'm Dale from Create a Pro website, and in this tutorial, I'm going to be showing you step by step how to set up and use n8n to create your very first automation workflow. n8n is like a digital assistant. You just tell it a trigger, which is something that happens like receiving an email or posting a video, and then you set the actions to follow, which includes apps and services for things like social media, email, Google Sheets, and even AI. And then n8n performs all of the tasks automatically so that you don't have to do each one manually. For example, you could set up a trigger for each time you post a new video on YouTube, and then it will automatically create a post about it with the link to the video on X or Twitter, then sends an email notification to your subscribers, and then creates a new Google Sheet with all the video details for tracking, and then finally sends a message to your team on Slack to let them know that the video has been published. And this all happens in an instant. n8n also has amazing AI functionality, which includes things like automatic email replies with AI customer support chat for whenever somebody submits a help request through your form, or automatic meeting summaries from a Zoom transcript whenever the meeting is ended, and much, much more. The workflow ideas are entirely dependent upon your imagination. But don't worry, there's also templates that you can use for n8n to make the workflow much easier, and I'll show you that in this video as well. So by the end of this video, you'll know how to install n8n, how to navigate the dashboard, and even create your very first simple workflow that you can start using right away. So if you're ready, let's get started. Okay, so there are 3 ways to get n8n, and I'm going to show you the easiest and most affordable way last. Now, the first way is just to go to n8n's website, and there it's going to be $24 a month for the cloud plan starter package, and then $60 for the pro plan, which is a bit expensive in my opinion. So the second way is that you can self-host n8n on your own computer at home, but I don't recommend this because your computer has to be on all the time, which puts wear and tear on its internal components. And then also it's just local to you. So it's going to be a lot harder to receive triggers from the outside world, like if somebody's filling out a form or what have you. So the way that I recommend and what I personally do every time I use n8n for a new project is to just simply host it with a VPS through Hostinger. And a VPS is a virtual private server. And it's super easy to set up through Hostinger's VPS plans and also incredibly affordable. So to do this, just click on the very first link in the description, and that's going to take you to a page that looks like this. So this is where you can get the exact same software with all the features, but for a fraction of the cost. So to get started, just click choose your plan, and that'll bring you down here, and you can go with either of these. I personally like the KVM2 because it's going to be faster and you're also going to get a lot more disk space for storage. So I always go with the KVM2 personally, but you can choose whatever works best for you. So I'm going to click choose plan. And here is where you can choose your billing cycle. So I always go with the 24 months because it gets you the biggest discount, but you can also go with the 12 if you're not ready to lock in for that long. Or even the 1 month if that best suits your needs and you want to try it out. And you can do an auto backup if you'd like to include that, but I'm going to skip that today. And here you're just going to select a server location that's closest to you right now. And it'll give you your latency over here. So actually the smaller number, the better. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it at Boston and then just scroll down. And then the beauty of Hostinger is that you can just search for n8n to install as your operating system as you check out. So I'm just going to type in n8n and then just select it right here and then just select confirm. Cool. And then come up here and make sure that you have Create a Pro website as your coupon code, because this is going to get you an additional 10% off as well, which is awesome. So whenever you're ready, just click continue. And then you just need to fill in your email and then just choose a password and then click register. Awesome. So now just fill in your billing details and then click continue. And then we're just going to fill in our card info and then just click submit payment. Cool, your payment's done, and then you can just click on Get Started. Cool, so now just choose a password for your virtual private server, and then just click on Next. And then it will automatically install a malware scanner for you, but if you don't want it, you can just uncheck, but I'm going to click on Finish Setup. Cool, so now it's just setting up your virtual private server and installing n8n for you. So just give this a few minutes. Awesome, we're all set, so now you can just go ahead and click on Manage VPS. And this little pop-up will come up and ask if you want to give it more information. We're just going to go ahead and skip that and then just come over to our dashboard. And you should automatically see n8n right here, which is your operating system. But if for whatever reason you don't, or you didn't install it before, you can just go over here to OS and panel, and then just click on operating system. And again, the current application is n8n, but if you don't see that, you can just go over here to the search bar and just type in n8n, and then you can see it right here, and you can just install it there. But we've already got it, so we're going to go back over to our overview, and then we're just going to click on Manage App. Cool. So now the next step is just to set up an owner account. So just go ahead and put in an email, and then your first name and last name, and then choose a password. And then just click Next. And then you can just fill in this little questionnaire here, and then just click Get Started. And then you'll be brought to this screen, which is our next step, which is to get a license key. So just enter in your email down here, and then just click Send me a free license key. And then that will look like this in your inbox, and just go ahead and click Activate License Key. Cool, so our license has been activated. So now just go ahead and click on the back button. And now I'll just give you a quick tour of the dashboard. It's pretty simple. So underneath the Workflows tab, which is what we're currently under, is where your workflows are going to show up after you've created them. So you can just click Start from Scratch and start working on a new one, which we'll do here shortly. And then if you go to Credentials, this is where all of your credentials, basically your logins for all the apps, are going to be. And when I say login, I don't mean a traditional login. It's actually an API key that's being set up with each of these apps so that it can talk to n8n. But this is where you'd set up like Google Sheets, Notion, Gmail, all of that so that you can use those nodes in your workflow. And then if you come over to executions, this is basically going to be your history of runs for your workflows so that you can debug something if you need to. And you can see that this flash happening is actually just an auto refresh, and it's just searching for new runs. But we don't have any yet, so we're not going to worry about it. And then you just got your toolbar over here. So overview, what we're already in, is going to be all of the workflows and credentials and everything that you have access to. Whereas personal is going to be the ones that you just own by yourself. But you're mainly going to be working in overview, so I wouldn't worry too much about this. So now I'll show you how to find and import templates so that you don't have to build the whole workflows yourself. We will be building one ourselves today, but this is super helpful, especially if you're new. So just go ahead and click on templates, and then just go up here and you can see view all templates. We're just going to open that in a new tab because that is going to take us to n8n's website. So these templates will cover everything from just really simple automations to full-blown AI automations. So if we just scroll up to the search bar, you can type in anything you want, or you can just click one of these tabs. Like let's say I wanted to find one that is AI based. I can just click on the AI tab, and then you're going to get tons of results for that, like AI chatbots, summarization, all kinds of stuff. And then you can also search even further. So that added that here. You can also type in Gmail, for instance, and then just click that. And if you come down to the results, it will tell you what it is and what it does, as well as which apps it connects to. And if it doesn't show all of them, you just hover over the plus button and it will show you the rest. And it will also tell you the price as well. And honestly, most of them are free, which is pretty awesome. So let's go down and just click on one of these, like the automated job application tracking one. And it will give you this little window where you can actually just zoom in and explore this workflow. And if you hit spacebar, you can use the hand to kind of drag around. And a lot of these templates will give you directions with it. So you can see with this one, it has a configuration setup built in. So it'll tell you how to hook all this up. And a lot of them can get really in depth. They can be directions for each individual step, which is really helpful. So let's say that I wanted to use this workflow. So I'm just going to click on use for free. And you can just click on the import template button because it already knows that we have this VPS set up with n8n. So it's automatically hooked up, but you can also just copy the template to your clipboard, which is just a simple JSON file. And then you just go back to n8n and then just go to overview. And then we're just going to click start from scratch. And then you can simply just Command V and paste this in, which is super awesome. So now you can see we've got this entire workflow set up, and the ones that are in red are ones that you will need to hook up with your credentials. But this is a pretty intense workflow. We're not actually going to use this. We're going to create something a little bit simpler today. So just go ahead and head back to overview, and we're just going to leave without saving. So our final step before we start working on our own workflow is to add our own credentials. So to do this, just go over to credentials. And again, credentials is just an API key that talks to these different apps and services that you want to use in your workflows. So it'll talk to Gmail, it will talk to Notion, it will talk to Google Sheets, etc. And if you don't set up credentials, then n8n will talk to Google Sheets, but it won't know which account to access and get the right Google Sheet that you've created. So just go ahead and click Add First Credential. And for this example, I'll set one up with Notion because we're going to be using that in our workflow. So just go ahead and type in Notion, and then we're just going to click on Notion API, and then click Continue. And here is where we're going to hook this up. Now, if you're ever confused setting up a credential, they often have these little documents that you can open, and it will tell you exactly step by step how to set this up. So I'm just going to go ahead and click the X because I already know how to do this, and I will show you how. So just go up to the plus button, and we're just going to go to Notion, and then we'll just click Login. And once you're logged into your Notion, just go ahead and click on Settings. And then we're just going to go over to Connections. And then we're just going to come down to Develop or Manage Integrations. Cool. So now we can set up a new integration. So just go ahead and click on the plus button. And then we're just going to give it a name. We're going to say n8n, and then just select your workspace. If you're logged in, it should automatically pop up. And then we're just going to leave this as internal, and we are not going to upload a logo because we really don't need that. So we're just going to click on Save. Cool. And that was saved successfully. So then just click on Configure Integration Settings. And then here inside the Configuration tab, you're going to see Internal Integration Secret. We're just going to go ahead and show that and then copy it. Cool. And then just go back over to n8n, and we're just going to paste that in here. And then just click on Save. Cool. So now that credential was added successfully. And if you come back over to Notion, and then you just click on the Access tab, here is where you can set up which pages that n8n is going to have access to. So we can go ahead and click Select Pages, and then click on Private. And then you can tell it which ones that you want to give it access to. So in our workflow example, we're going to do one for e-commerce video ideas as well as WordPress video ideas. And we're going to have a filter, sort of filter those out and create different ideas for each topic. So I'm just going to say Update Access. Cool. And then let's just go back over to n8n, and then we can just click on the X. And then you can see our Notion account has been added here to our Credentials tab. So for the sake of keeping the tutorial short and sweet, I've already hooked up all of these, but if you would like to learn how to set up your Google credentials with n8n, including Drive, Sheets, and Gmail, then I have a tutorial which you can find in the description. It's a quick 5-minute tutorial. You can also click on the card at the top right of the screen. And I do highly recommend it because you will need these in order to follow along with our workflow today. It's a slightly different process than how we did with the Notion one, but that tutorial will help you breeze right through it. Okay, so let's go ahead and click on Workflows. And now we're going to move on to building our first workflow together so that you can see how this works. So you can either click on Create Workflow up here, or if you don't have any already made, which we don't, you can just say Start from Scratch. And all workflows start with a trigger and then the actions. So today we're going to be starting with a form submission trigger. And for this example, it's going to be a form where my subscribers can fill out video ideas for this channel. And then it's going to update a Google Sheet with all the info that they provide in the form. And then it will automatically filter out topics that we don't want to make any videos on. Then it's going to take those ideas and update a Notion page for the 2 separate topics that we choose. So we're going to do WordPress ideas and e-com ideas. And then it will send a thank you email saying, thank you for submitting the idea. And here's some helpful links, again, for both WordPress ideas and e-com ideas separately. Then we're going to merge those together and then finally send an email to us as the owner saying that we have new ideas submitted. This is just one idea, but once you understand triggers and then hooking up actions in a chain, then the ideas are endless. Okay, so let's get started. It always starts with a trigger, so we're going to go ahead and just click on the plus button, and we're going to start with an on-form submission trigger. Okay, so this interface makes a lot of sense when you just look at it in blocks. So you've got your input block over here, and then you've got what you're changing, basically your parameters, and then your output is what it's going to give you. So the first thing we're going to do is just give this form a title. I'll just say Content Idea Form. And then we'll just come down to Add Form Element. And we're just going to make this first name. And then we're going to leave the element type as text so they can write in their name. And then we're going to come down and add form element. And again, we'll do last name. and we're going to leave that as text again. And then we're going to do add form element again, and we're going to say email. And then we're going to change this from text over to email. And then again, we're going to do add form element. And we're going to change this to subject. Basically, what is their idea about? And again, we're going to leave that as text, and then another add form element. And then this one, we're going to do topic. And then we're going to change this from text to dropdown. And this is going to be a little drop-down menu in our form. So we're going to add some options here. So we'll do WordPress, and then add field option. And then we're going to do e-commerce, and then add field option again. And then we'll make this one say SEO. So these are the different topics of video ideas that somebody could submit. And then down here, we're just going to come over to add form element one more time. And then we're going to say description of idea. And then we're going to change this from text to text area, which is going to be a much bigger spot for somebody to write in than just one line of text. And then we want to make sure that we mark these as required fields. So we want the description to be a required field, as well as the topic and the subject and also the email. And then we'll leave last name as optional, and we'll do first name as required as well. And then just come all the way to the bottom, and we're going to set a little message for whenever the form is submitted. It'll say, thank you for submitting. Please check your email. So to do that, we're just going to go to options and then click add option. And then we'll say form response. And then we'll just change this text. And then we can just go ahead and click execute step. Cool. So now we've got our form that people can fill out. So let's go ahead and just leave ourselves a test form submission. So I'm going to say first name, last name, email. And then for the subject, we'll just type in an example. So this one will be about SEO, for example. So I said, help me rank my website locally on Google. And then for topic, I'll just choose SEO. And then just a quick description. So we're just going to click submit. Cool. Form submitted. And here's our little thank you for submitting text, which is awesome. So then you can just close out of this. And you can see that that output is right here with all of that information. And you can view this output window by a table or the schema or the JSON, which if you're a coder is helpful, but I like the table version the most. And this step is incredibly important. We're going to pin this data right here. So basically, every time we execute a new step in our workflow, it's going to use this data so that we don't have to keep filling out the form over and over and over again. So just make sure that you click on the pin button, and then that will pin this execution. Cool. So now we can just go back to Canvas. And then now we're going to create our first action step. So let's go ahead and just click on the plus button. And then we're just going to search for Sheets. And we're going to do Google Sheets. And then we're going to choose append or update a row in Sheets. So this is going to update the same Google Sheet over and over again. And now, like I said earlier, you've got your input block and then what you're editing and then your output. So what we're going to do is just go to our Google Sheets account, which should already be hooked up right here. And then we're going to leave the resource and operations the same. And then we're going to choose our Google Sheet from this list. So I've already made one called Content Idea Submissions. So I'm going to select on that, which you can see that document right here. So I've created it with first name, last name, email, subject, topic, and description of idea. And if for some reason you do not see it right here, it's probably because you may have hooked up Google Sheets API, but not the Google Drive. So it's going to need to access your Drive in order to get to your Google Sheets. So again, if you do need to hook up Google credentials, I've got an awesome tutorial for that in the description. And then for sheet, we're just going to click on choose, and we're going to do sheet 1 since there is only one sheet in that document. And then we're going to make sure that this says map each manually. And this part is pretty simple. So you literally just pull them from over here and link them. So we'll grab first name and link that here. And then last name, link it here. Email, subject, topic, and then the description of idea. Cool. And then we're just going to scroll up, and for column to match on up here, we're going to set that to email, because if somebody enters this with the same email multiple times, it's going to update that same email so that there's not a bunch of new columns in our Google Sheet. So with all that said, just go ahead and execute step. Cool. So now that popped up here in our output. And then if we go over to our Google Sheet, it is also updated right here. So far, this is working perfectly. So let's go back over to n8n, and then we're just going to go back to the canvas. And now we just want to add a filter node. So we're going to click on the little plus button, and we're going to search for filter, and then click it right here. And what we're going to use this for is to filter out ideas that we maybe don't want. So for the example here, I'm just going to use SEO, and we're going to filter that out. That way it's not going to send a Notion or an email or anything for SEO. It will only do it for WordPress ideas and ecom ideas. But you can use this filter for anything. So all we're going to do is just take our topic right here, which is our drop-down menu, and we're going to put it right in there. And then instead of saying is equal to, we're going to string and then do is not equal to. And then in the value, we're just going to type in SEO for this example. And what this is going to do is just take any idea that was submitted as SEO and basically just discard it. For the record, you can always submit an idea for SEO to us here at Create a Pro website. This is just for the example. So just go ahead and click execute step. And then you can see we've got kept, which is nothing because we don't have any other ideas, but we have discarded item, and then it will say our information here. And then you can see here topic SEO has been discarded. Cool. So far this is all working perfect. We're going to go back to the canvas. So next what we're going to do is add a switch. So we're going to click on the plus button and then just type in switch and then just select it right here. And this is a really simple node. It's just a switch to basically take our flow and break it into 2 or 3 different parts, however many you want to give it. But in order to test this effectively, I actually need to go back to the canvas and then go back to the form. And we're going to execute this step again. And we're going to say unpin and test. And then I'm going to fill out this information with a different topic here because SEO is discarded. So I'm going to choose WordPress instead. So I'll just give this some dummy information. Cool. So I've refilled this out and I've selected WordPress here instead of SEO so that we can accurately test our switch. So I'm just going to submit that. And then we're just going to go back over to our switch. Actually, sorry, we are going to pin this first. And then we're going to go back to the canvas and then back to our switch. And then you may need to click on execute previous nodes. And then that will give you your data. And in the input section, you can see that it has run through our form submission, then through our Google Sheet, and then through our filter. And now we're working on the switch. So what we're going to do is just go to filter, and then we're just going to grab topic, and we're going to put that in value 1, like that. And then we're going to say is equal to, and we'll say WordPress. And then we're going to add another routing rule. And then we're just going to grab topic again, and then we'll say is equal to e-commerce. And this is going to be our 2 different splits in our workflow. So then just go ahead and click execute step. Cool. So now we've got our 2 different outputs, output 0 and output 1. And you can see underneath output 0, since I did WordPress, it went to output 0, but output 1 has nothing in it because we haven't submitted anything with e-commerce in here. So this is working. So then just go back to the canvas and you can see that now we've got 2 different lanes here. So within these 2 lanes, you can add different actions. So we're going to click on the top one and just click the plus button, and we're going to search for Notion, and we're going to click Notion right here. And what we want this to do is basically just update a Notion page by appending a block. So we're going to click on append to block. And this is basically just going to add new blocks to an existing Notion page, which I have right here. So I've created one that says WordPress video ideas. So what I'm going to do is actually just copy this URL right up here and then go back to n8n. And you can leave all of this information the same. And then we're going to do block by URL, and we're just going to paste that in just like that. And then we're just going to click on add block, and we'll just keep this set as paragraph. And we're just going to drag in first name over to the text. And then you can also add in last name on the same line if you want by adding it afterwards. And you can put a little space in here. That way your first name and last name gets added to the same line. And then we'll say add block, and we'll keep this set as paragraph again. And we're going to do email. We're going to put that in the text section. And then we'll go to add block. And this one we're going to change to maybe a heading 3. So it's a little bit bigger text. And we're going to add the subject to the text right here. And then finally, we're going to add a block, And we're going to keep this set as paragraph, and we'll do description of idea. Cool. So now just go ahead and click execute step. And you can see that that information has been added to our output. And if we go over to our WordPress video ideas Notion page, you can see right here it has been updated. n8n is honestly one of the coolest tools I have ever used. Cool. So now I'll just go back to Canvas, and then I'll quickly do the same thing for this other output as well. But this time, instead of WordPress ideas, it's going to be e-com ideas. Okay, so I've done the exact same thing again, but for e-commerce. And all I had to do was go back to the form and just execute that step again and submit one with the e-commerce topic. So now let's add a Gmail node so that this will send an automatic thank you email to the person that submitted the form. So let's go ahead and click on the plus button, and then we're just going to search Gmail and click it right here. And then we're going to say send a message. And we've already got our Gmail account hooked up here. And then for the resource, we're going to say message, and then operation should be send. And then in this to section, what we're going to do is just go over here, scroll all the way down below your Notion stuff and go back to your switch. And we're just going to grab the email right here and drop that in. And then just give your email a subject. And then just leave the email type as HTML, and then you'll just type in your message. So I actually have one prepared right here. So I'm just going to copy it, and it just says thank you, and here's a helpful playlist of some other ideas. So then I'll just go back and paste that in. And then you can also click on this little button here, and that will bring up a full window. So what we're going to do is just grab this and add a line break like that. And then again here as well. Cool. And then just click the X, and then we can just execute that step. Cool. And then it says sent right here. Now, this is not a real email that I have access to, but if you send it to one of your emails, you can actually test it. You can just type your email in right here. Cool. So let's go back to the canvas. And then I'll just set up that exact same thing again for the WordPress lane here after our switch. Cool. So I just did the exact same thing again. And now that we've got our second Gmail node in here, what we want to do now is merge these two lanes together. So let's go ahead and click on the plus button and then type in merge. And then you can see it right here. And then we're going to leave the mode as append, and we're going to leave the number of inputs at 2, and then just go back to the canvas. And then we're just going to drag this down and put this input into input 2, just like that. And now the final thing that we want to do is create a Gmail node to send us an email as the owner, letting us know that we have a new video idea submission. So to do that, just click on the plus button, and then we're going to type in Gmail and then click on it. And then again, we're going to click on send a message. And we've got our Gmail account in here. We want it to be message, and then the operation is send. And then we're going to send it to us as the owner. So I'll type in my email. And then in the subject, we're just going to say new video idea submission. And then in the message, I'll just say you have a new video idea. And then you can choose to execute that step, or we can just go back to Canvas. So now we have got this awesome workflow all built out, and whenever you're ready to test it, you can just click execute workflow. And then you can see it's going to work through each step automatically. And then they've all turned green depending on what you put into your form. So for me, I put in a WordPress submission. So it's going to go all the way through, and then at the switch, it'll go up to our WordPress, Notion, and Gmail, and then back in to send me an email. Okay, so that was a full walkthrough of n8n, from setting it up to creating your very first automation workflow. n8n just gets easier and easier the more that you build workflows with it. So my suggestion is just to keep building workflows that either work for your personal life or your business life. If you found this video helpful, please hit the like button. It really helps my channel grow. And also let me know in the comments what kind of workflows that you're building with n8n. And subscribe to the channel if you want to see more tutorials like this. My name is Dale from Creator Pro website, and I will see you on the next video.